Let's go.
What's up, bro?
It worked. What's up, man?
Have you made any money off of GameStop or Dogecoin?
Oh God, we're going right into that shit.
We're going right in, man.
Maybe a little bit, here and
Yeah?
there. Yeah.
Man.
Without disclosing any factual numbers.
Right.
I had to kind of, play the game.
Man, I guess I missed the boat because I was like, there's no way this shit can be real where you can actually make real money off of it. But
Bro,
apparently people made some big come ups off of it.
apparently, man. I mean, it's like cheating almost, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay out of it as much as possible.
Me too.
But yeah, obviously it's like the hype of the town lately, for sure.
Yeah. I just feel like it's too easy. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, and always like what I know about history is whenever things seem this easy, it always ends up
exactly.
not going down how people would like,
Exactly.
So, but screw it.
Hey, I'm sure some people made money off of it, and I'm not mad.
Yeah.
Yo,
just wanted to introduce you really quick to my friend Kevin here. He says hi.
What's up, Kevin?
He's actually my ghost producer. He cooks up with me all the time. He does like all the work, and I just take all the credit.
Damn.
Yeah.
He's a talented dude then.
Yeah, thank you, man. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Introduce yourself, man. For anyone that doesn't know who you are or what you do, just talk a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I go by Dwilly. I'm out here in LA as a producer and a writer. And Kato also mentioned I sing. So I have a project of my own that I drop music. And that's basically like taking influences from like hip hop and electronic.
Yeah.
At one point I classified myself more as a electronic producer, but now I'm kind of branching out into the rock world and doing a little bit of hyper pop. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much me.
I was listening to your music before this live. I was on your Spotify just listening to your tracks, and definitely, it's very eclectic. You got a lot of like electronic influence I hear in there, but then it also kind of gave me like throwback emo rock vibes.
Yeah.
With some of the vocals and shit like that. So
yeah, that's funny.
I like
that. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you're out there in LA, and Laura, who connected us, sent me a quick one sheet on some of the artists that you've worked with, some of the records that you've done, and one of your recent releases for Mike Posner, including his lead single, right, which was "Look What I Become."
Yeah, that was off the most recent mixtape, and that was with Dolla Sign. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yo, how did that whole thing happen? Did you have a relationship with Mike, or?
Yeah, so we actually he actually brought me out to this like writing camp called Amor Fati that he hosted. Nice. And we ended up vibing and really clicked on a creative level. So he ended up coming out to LA to work with me for like, I think it was like a block out, like a week or something. And we ended up cooking up some tracks for that eventually ended up coming out like probably like 6 months to a year later. But yeah, that was just one of the songs. And it actually that whole song started with one melody that our other buddy, Adam, he actually sent Mike that melody, and Mike was like, yo, like one of my homies like send me this little melody, I think it's sick, like let's just fucking go off of this. I was like, all right, tight. And so like I just started cooking up the beat, and he just took a hold of the reins with the lyrics, and then we ended up just knocking it out.
Dope. And so so it was featuring Dolla Sign, Prince Akeem, and Wiz, or was that different?
Yeah, so Prince Akeem with Wiz, that was actually, he had an earlier version of that beat that I think he wanted just like revamped and kind of like souped up for like, I don't know, like 2020 standards. And it was a beat he had kind of like on the hard drive, I think from like David Banner.
Yeah.
And so we did that one, and then he was like, yeah, I want to get another feature on this. So he had Wiz hop on.
Damn.
Yeah, dude.
Dope.
Cool shit, yeah.
So you produced that one. Did you do any writing on that too? Because you do a lot, man. Like, one thing that I wanted to ask you is like, how do you manage your time with all the stuff that you do? Because,
dude, honestly, iCal.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, because I like to give direct answers. Oh wait, I'm such a bot. Can I like turn this camera around? Here we go. So I use this. This is like my bread and butter right here. I use this like dry erase board.
Whiteboard. Yeah.
Comes in clutch, man. That saves my life because like I don't have the greatest memory, and like you'll realize that you'll ask me some stuff and I'll have to like rack my brain for answers, but this thing helps me get by and it helps me like really compartmentalize like all my tasks and everything.
100%. Stay organized. That's a big
key.
Key.
Organization for me is the key, and it also helps like manage my stress. Like I have to keep all my shit clean. I have to keep my desktop looking good. Even internally within like the project of like Ableton, I'll have to color code everything. Everything needs to be consolidated and deleted if not being used. It just really helps like my workflow like that,
Yeah, I think that's good to be kind of OCD about like, just staying organized. It just, I find that even when my room is like kind of messy, it just messes with my creativity. Like,
totally.
I can't, what I mean?
And sometimes like people get unaffected by that. And like, I wish I had that, I wish that was part of my character almost, so I didn't have to like worry about everything, but it really does like, it's like a peace of mind type thing. It's like you finish this and then the only thing you got to worry about is, the production and the creative part. Yeah,
exactly. So you've worked with a lot of artists, man. Like there's a lot of run through some of the names that you've worked with.
Yeah, for sure. So more recently, I've been cooking up, well, I guess I'll kind of like try to list. So like Mike Posner was one of the bigger artists that I first started working with out here. So more recently I've been working with this kid Swaco the Child. You guys might know him from TikTok. He has a big song called Fast, but we've actually done a complete like 180 like sonic flip for him, and we're like really pursuing like his roots and like rock and like punk. But we're kind of doing it, and we're kind of like dipping our toes more into like the hyper pop lane, and we're just like kind of like exploring that. The next song he has coming out is with Travis Barker. We had him hop on the drums, and it's a cool one.
It's
supposed to come out in the next couple weeks. There's this cat, Royal and the Serpent. She's awesome. I've been working with her a little bit. Got some stuff coming out with her.
Okay.
Upsall. Trevor Daniel, I had a song on his last album, and I think I have some stuff coming out with him on his next project. That's what he's telling me. Let's see who else. So like, through all this COVID shit, I've been doing a lot of like remote work. I've been cooking up with BB No Money and Young Gravy. Those guys are tight.
Nice.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
Ty Verdes is another kid I've been working with. He popped off of TikTok recently, and I'm actually homies with his manager, so he brought me on. We've been cooking up.
Dope.
Yeah,
man. I mean, so one thing that I get asked from a lot of like aspiring artists and producers and songwriters is like, how do I network with people? Like, how do I connect with bigger artists? And for someone like you who has obviously like successfully connected and worked with a lot of big names, like what would you tell them? Like, what's your key to getting in the studio or getting tracks in the right hands?
I would say, I mean, above all else, originality is key, because the sad reality is the industry is saturated these days. Everybody's a producer, at least everybody claims to be.
Yeah.
And I think the really only way to shine through is somehow find a niche in your in the market where you can like really kind of finagle your sound and like force people to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
I think being unique is undervalued, or sorry, being unique is probably like the most important thing, I would say.
Makes you stand out.
Yeah, and obviously there's other factors involved, like luck, connections. Like I think honestly a lot of doors will open up just through other connections and like meeting people. That's, to me, that's like what I'm always trying to work on, just like, because like I could be like a studio rat all day and like be working, but then like I'm really drying up my opportunities for like meeting other artists. And yeah, so also just being like, if you're talking about production, like you got to be like fast in your DAW. Like I see a lot of guys that don't know all the shortcuts, and they're like taking mad time to do like the simplest tasks. You gotta know your shortcuts. You know, because if an artist is working with you and they have the option of working with you and another guy that's faster, they're gonna go with that guy, you know. Unless he's a dick. Also, don't be a dick. Just be cool.
Yeah, that's a big one, actually. It's just people gotta like you, you know.
For sure.
So what did that process look like for you though? Like, was it, you know, how many years did it take you to build these relationships and to get these placements and stuff like that?
Some like a handful of these artists, it definitely like the relationship nurtured for a while before we got to like that comfort level where we were making like really good music. Sometimes it comes right off the bat. With certain situations, but for instance, like the Mike relationship has just been evolving, and you know, we're like close homies, and like
that's dope.
You know, we talk about stuff non-related to music, which I think is healthy. But you know, he's the type of guy that he'll just hit me up out of the blue every couple months, and we'll make new stuff. And but I would say it is important to, you know, just develop relationships and keep the relationship going by staying on tabs with them, and you know, and not necessarily always poking them for music and sessions, just like being genuinely involved in their lives and like making sure everything's okay. I think that like really goes far.
It's really about relationships, bro. That's
sure.
One thing that I've learned over my 14 years is like, as much as it is about music and being talented and all that, it's really more so about just building relationships with people. You know,
agree.
If they like you, I feel like they'll be more willing to get in the studio or to like hit you up if they just like you as a person, you know?
Right. You know, it's crazy. I think what you're saying right now, I think that factor is almost more valuable, and I think the skill on top of that is almost like an added bonus. It's like the icing on the cake.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
You can be like the most talented producer in the world, but if you're not like a likable dude, it's almost like a waste, you know? So,
huge waste.
So it's extremely important.
Very important. So like, would you say people found out about you from you just putting your music out there? Like, how were they discovering you in the first place?
Well, I think how people are discovering me is always kind of like changing. It's over time, but more recently, I've been having a lot of people just kind of know me from the Splice community, and with the packs I've been dropping. I think initially, when I first was, you know, gaining a little traction and you know, people were eyeballing me, was on SoundCloud, and that's when I was like, you know, dropping like stupid remixes and tracks and whatever. That eventually led to where I'm at now, dropping original music and producing. But I feel like the songwriting and the record community, at least in LA, is like so small that a lot of like the people I'm meeting these days and a lot of people hitting me up is just word of mouth, you know?
Word of mouth.
It's like I don't have like the biggest audience, and I don't have like, you know, obviously the biggest catalog, but I think I would hopefully like to say that just like the work that I do like in the room
Speaks for itself.
And, you know, carries through. And like, you know, like I'm not like the most social media savvy guy, because I think I probably neglect those skills because of how much time I actually spend like producing and making music.
Yeah.
But you know, I would like, I think I just like value my time more in the creative space.
Yeah.
In that sense, you know?
I mean, I think that speaks to like really understanding where your strengths are. You know, for you, it's like you're clearly a super, super talented dude, and you like making music with people and being in the studio and producing. So I think like, you know, it's just, I always tell people like, figure out what you're good at. You know,
Right.
If you're really good at just being a producer and being dope and talented, then people are going to recognize you for that talent, and it's going to spread like kind of how it has for you, you know?
And that's also so important, what you just said, like playing your strengths, because there's so many different facets of production. Like you could like, there's guys that only do loops. There's guys that specialize in only guitar. There's guys that literally only play keys. And because they're so focused in that area, they're able to hop on records because other bigger producers know them for that skill and they bring them on.
Exactly.
So, and like, it's not impossible to make it out there just as a beat maker and producer. Like, it's very possible. Like, people are blowing up all the time, but I almost think like you're hedging your bets better if you're like focused, if you really focus on a couple strengths and you make that your identity as a producer.
Bro, I 1000% agree with you. Because it's like, when I think about the people that I collaborate with, it's not the people who are like really super active on social media. It's the ones like you said who have very particular skill sets. Like I have one guy I go to that's really dope at guitar. Another guy who I go to that's a really super sick like bass player, or like dope at keys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like very specialized skill sets that I recognize that they're really good at, and I hit them up anytime that I need that. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So I think that's a really, really important point. Talk about some of your sample packs, and your splice packs do really well on their platform.
Yeah, thank you, man.
When did that start?
So that actually started, I believe, around 2 years ago. I think somehow I got connected to the team at Splice. And it actually came through somebody I had been in touch with at a website they had purchased called Indaba Music, and they basically had hosted like remixes and like sample packs. Anyway, so I got linked with the team over at Splice, and I did my first pack with them, which was the beginning of the Donuts and Dinosaurs series, which was like like I'm not even sure. I think at that time it was just a compilation of like all the sonics that I was diving into, and like basically I was trying to mirror all the sounds that were in my releases. And I think kids on Splice you know, just gravitated towards that pack because of all the weird sounds. And that basically led me into doing like a volume 2 and a volume 3. And then after that I did a more kind of like middle of the road Pop for Dummies pack. Is called Pop for Dummies, and that was just basically kind of like your standard like tools, you know, for producing, like lots of hat loops, lots of like one shots. And then the most recent one I did was the Plug, which is like catered more for hip hop and trap.
Got you.
Stuff, yeah.
So what's your process for creating the packs? Because right now I feel like we're in a space, which I'm sure you know this, but like the sample pack game too now is becoming super, super popular.
Yeah.
And I love Splice, right? Like I I'd stay on Splice looking for dope loops and one
You
shots.
have
But
to, man.
yeah, I mean,
I'm with you on that.
It's a super important tool, but I feel like it's almost getting to the point where, like, if I just take a loop and I just bring it into my DAW and I don't manipulate that loop to a point where it's like you can't tell.
Yeah.
And so many people are gonna recognize it, you know.
But the thing is, man, that I always think that too. But the thing is, so many people, like the people that will recognize it are only producers.
Right.
It's like in your goal in releasing music, you gotta, like, I always tell people that, like, it's the broader vision of, like, it's like that soccer mom out in Arkansas. Like, she doesn't know what Splice is, you know?
Yeah.
Like the fans that are out there, like, listening to all their favorite artists, they don't know what Splice is. Like,
but I will say this. So I used a pretty popular guitar loop from Splice, and I used it in one of my beats. Didn't really think anything of it because I was like, oh, well, you know, if anyone recognizes it, it's just going to be fucking producers and whatever.
Yeah.
So I posted that beat on TikTok, and I noticed a lot of the comments were like, I've heard this guitar, who did you steal this guitar loop from?
Oh, no.
I've heard this guitar loop in so-and-so's song before. So it's like average fans are starting to catch on now where they've heard certain loops in their favorite artist songs, and they're like thinking that I either stole it or sampled it. And it's like, you know, it's gotten to that point.
Well, again, that is the incentive of cooking up your own, like, private packs and, like, having stuff on the go that other people don't have access to. But man, I'll tell you, man, I'm still, like, hella active on Splice. I'm still, like, dragging in a lot of those loops because, I mean, like, if you're the first one to use that loop, then you know you're killing it. But, like, obviously you don't want to be, like, the fifth guy to use that. I know what you're saying because I've also used some of those guitar loops, and I'm like, do I care that this is in another song?
Right.
Like, no, because, you know, I mean,
because if it works, dope, it's dope.
It works.
Yeah.
But as, like, far as my workflow, you'd really have to ask Kevin here because, you know, he's doing most of it these days. So for the packs, man,
what's the workflow like, man?
So check it. So I got this little box of, like, little toys. So my parents took a trip to Bahamas probably like 10 years ago, and they brought me back, like, this shitty flute, but it sounds so good. And basically, like, I'll just find, like, little toys like that and record them into the mic and, like, process them, and, like, they sound dope. I'm a big keys player, so I got the piano right here. I got the 3-tier synth rack right here. A lot of, like, my loops come from the DX7, the Summit, the OB6, and then I'm tracking in, like, a lot of guitar. So everything, I'm trying to keep everything in house. I'm trying to keep everything raw and analog and vintage.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of producers don't have access. You know, if they can't necessarily, like, have access to these instruments, or they don't know how to play them, they got to find them somewhere. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's, yeah, man. And Splice, you know, if you have a pack on there that does really well and gets a lot of downloads, like, it's a nice payday too.
Yeah, it does well. It does well for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever, I always ask this to, like, producers I know that put out sample packs. How do you feel about royalty-free versus, you know, attaching royalties on the back end to your packs? Like, have you ever heard your loop being used in, like, a huge record and you're like, damn, I wish I would have.
Well, I had a loop on a J Balvin record, actually. And it was like a percussive loop.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't really get that mad about, like, I'm not too concerned about having stuff on Splice be used for big songs, because, I mean, at the end of the day, I doubt that loop would have been able to get in the hands of that artist anyway. So I see Splice almost like as a stepping stone, and, like, a way to like grow your credibility,
Yeah.
and also make, you know, some great supplemental side income.
Yeah.
So obviously it would be great to claim a little of that publishing on the back end, but
you're doing just fine about it.
I think in the next year or two, I can say with confidence that like Splice, there is going to be a function on that website where they're integrating splits with loops. So that it won't be long before some of these databases of samples will start requiring the splits of publishing and writer shares, which will be interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it'll actually separate these databases between like the public for use licensable loops and a more almost like sought after pristine set of loops that come with attachments, like come with a price, come with splits. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think it's just the beginning. I think this whole like world of sampling and everything is gonna take a cool course.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, we see what, you know, TrackLib. Are you familiar with TrackLib?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think what TrackLib is doing is super cool and innovative, and you know, just their whole like business model is really interesting to me.
And it's cool to recycle like those old songs, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like forcing people to like you know, give recognition to the history of music and bring them back in a cool like fresh way.
Yeah, 100%. So these days, where's your focus at? Like, are you focused on putting out more of your own music, producing for other artists, the packs, like?
Yeah. So right now, like my artist project, I say is kind of like more in the back seat right now. I'm focused primarily on just like working with artists and kind of like getting songs out and building up my, you know, repertoire of like basically just like building my catalog. I want to get a couple more cuts, a couple more credits.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Dwilly project is something that's like something I can pick up whenever. And obviously like, it sucks that like I'm waiting so long in between releases, but there's another side project that I'm actually starting with my buddy Colin in the like this year, and it's basically all house. It's all like house with auto-tuned vocals.
Nice.
And we have a bunch of songs ready, and I think I'm actually going to start prioritizing that project.
Dope.
And the Dwilly project started from like kind of started rough around the edges in college, and I didn't really know, like I wasn't really sure like how to like really brand myself, and I think like my personality really bled into the project, which was good, and like I was lucky to have somewhat of a consistent sonic. But now that I've kind of like gone through the process of knowing what it takes to be an artist and keep up with everything, I'm like really excited to pursue like this new project. And kind of take everything what I learned and like really hone it in, you know?
Yeah. And you're independent, right? Totally 100%.
Yeah, independent right now. Yeah.
Nice. Is your goal to stay independent or go major or cross that bridge?
Man, I don't know. I'm always like, if like the money's right, then I'll sign some shit. But like, my goal would be to stay independent. That would be very nice.
Yeah.
Just to have complete control.
Exactly.
Because there's obviously advantages to having, you know, a team behind you and having them facilitate a lot of the business things. But between like me and my manager and the rest of my team, I would prefer to keep everything consolidated as much as possible. And because, you know, I'm handling the music, and at this point with this side project I'm starting, I think I have like the vision and the brand locked down. So yeah, the goal would be just keep it independent, and if the music's right and people mess with it enough, just grow the fan base, you know?
Yeah. So we have a question here. It's kind of a generic question, but I think it'd be good to get your thoughts on it.
Let's do it.
Truly Hans, how do I get my beats placed with mid to major artists?
Dude, I'm still asking that question to this day.
But you've had those.
Right. So the luck I've had with placing beats has 9 out of 10 times been in the room with them. So like I was saying before,
beats.
Yeah, and the shitty thing is about the music industry is how political it is. Obviously it's easier for some people that are already in a circle or already in a network, but honestly, instead of trying to place your beats with the biggest artists, which is possible but difficult, I think it's more advantageous for producers to find artists before they blow up, artists that are small, that have potential to grow, potential to rise up and be like the next Post Malone, the next Bieber. You kind of have to like A&R this vast ocean of artists that are out there, and you gotta just put your eggs in that basket and really pursue it. There are some like outlets to getting your beats. I mean, I know some kids that like pop off on like BeatStars. There's a handful of like websites where you can get lucky, even YouTube, because especially in the digital age of where music's at, there's so many artists that just cop beats from YouTube, and they
I feel like
just upload that shit and boom.
Yeah. I know a lot of producers who have done that and gotten lucky, but I think you can do both, right? Like you can put your beats on YouTube and BeatStars and online and all of that, but I think you should also be developing and building relationships with your own artists that are kind of on your level at the same time, like there's enough time to do both. Oh shit. Okay. I think kind of breaking up, but all right. Sorry, you kind of broke up for a little bit. Yes.
Last 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
Well,
No, I think we're good now.
Cool.
Let me see.
Yo, I gotta shout my boy Luke Russell out because he's here in the chat.
Shout out to Luke.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of another, very common question that I get, but for someone who's just starting out, right? Like, how did you get your name out there, and where did you start?
So that's a great question. Where I think where things started to pick up for me and where I was flourishing the most was when I was actually in college. I hadn't really yet established a name for myself as a producer or an artist until I kind of like found this pocket of success like within just the college community, like remixing songs and like just blasting them like in my homies' apartments.
Yeah.
And like just literally just getting like people on board in the most simplest what's the word? I don't know. Just like basically like how it happened is I was making songs at Berkeley, where I went to college, and that led to me like playing all these like underground, like grimy, like college parties.
Yeah.
And that led to like me really exploring production in a way where I was starting to like get in rooms with people and like write songs, because I wasn't used to like the whole concept of like getting in rooms with people and collaborating. I was basically just like scouring the internet for acapellas and basically doing what I think a lot of producers do at first.
Yep.
But then when I really started to learn how to like write and hone my skills in that area, everything I think kind of came together at once.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that's where I really like established like the Dwilly project. And I think like the first song that I can remember really like putting my name on the map in a small way, not map as in like blowing up, but just map as in people, you know, were like messing with the music, was this song I did, Bathtub, with my homie Amelia that went to Berkeley. And at the time, like, it was my first song on Spotify, and I didn't really know how Spotify operated, but I saw like the streams go up. So then I kind of just went like all in and started cooking up songs. Yeah. And I had some like a partnership going on with Majestic Casual. They were helping me put out my music. Nice. And then from there, I just kept on exploring different sounds and, you know, all that.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
I think the thing is that, you know, messes with a lot of new creatives is like they have these expectations of blowing up overnight or getting a record deal from their first song that they put out, or you know, like having all these new fans just discover them out of nowhere. And it just it doesn't happen like that, you know.
It really doesn't. It's unreal. It's like a very unrealistic outcome, but with the right amount of work, it is possible for, like, let's say TikTok, for instance. I feel like that's the wild card in this discussion. The things that people don't realize is there might be a lot of work that goes on behind the curtains before you even get the chance to like really put in the money into TikTok to get that campaign, or, you know, get the marketing down. But, you know, sometimes what I've seen on TikTok is, you know, like people will just upload a song and it'll blow up, and like that's awesome. But it's also like you're extremely lucky, and it's like the percentage
and the other thing though too is like, just because you have one moment doesn't mean that you're going to have an entire career off of music, you know what I mean? So it's like you can get lucky and have a viral moment, but if you don't have a foundation built, if you don't have a team in place, if you like haven't really perfected your craft yet, how many times can you replicate that moment? And I think that's what dictates an actual successful career. Is like it's a series of those moments happening again and again and again for a
That's so true, man. That's so true.
Yeah.
You gotta have the consistency and the longevity to make it past that first flash in the pan and prove to people you can do it again. Because I think like what you're saying is, today I'm seeing a lot more of these, like, I mean, for lack of a better words, like one-hit wonders, you know, like I see a lot of flashes in the pan and I don't see any follow-up. And I think it's because, you know, like obviously it's really hard to handle like that initial success and know how to concentrate that in basically impress people again. Yeah. Because there's a huge expectation after you get a song to follow it up with something that's going to blow up again. And I think it almost puts you in a more difficult.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. 100%. I agree with you. All right. One more question. This is a good one, kind of relevant to now. How has COVID changed your workflow and focus? Like, what has changed for you since the pandemic?
Totally. So I've actually been, I think that I've been a lot more focused on, basically it goes back to organization. I think like prior to COVID, my life was a little bit more cluttered with my activities and what I was doing that I don't think was actually necessary to improving my life. So now a lot of the decisions I make that are based on time the question is this really helping my career as a producer? And sometimes it's hard to distinguish what's helping and what's not, but sometimes that's saying no to sessions that really aren't going to help you. So I think like during COVID, another thing during COVID is since I've obviously had a lot more time because I'm like literally deleting like travel out of my life and like going out. I've been, you know, trying to get on a consistent exercise schedule and like just taking that time out of the day to just go run and kind of be separated from society for like 30 minutes or an hour. That's like really, I think, improved my creative, structure. But it obviously, there has been a hindrance on the collaborative side, not being able to be in the room with some of these artists that just, it's not possible for them to be in person. But there has been a handful of artists that I stay in touch with and that I'm able to get in the room because of, the relationships we've established and the trust that we have, that we're not being irresponsible during COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, Zoom has been interesting with the whole Zoom concept. I'm not the biggest fan. I'll do it if it's like absolutely necessary and it's a session that I want to make happen.
Yeah.
But I don't like Zoom that much. I obviously prefer in session. So I'm excited for like everybody to get vaccinated and go back to normal, to be honest,
Facts. Yeah, man. Well, dope. Yo, I appreciate you jumping on, Dwilly. And
absolutely, man.
Where can people find you, find your music, reach out to you, all that?
I mean, like, I try to keep my my social pages updated as much as possible. So everything is at It's Dwilly. So you can keep tabs on me there. Be on the lookout for a new project that I'm starting up this year. It's called Night Swim X. And I'll definitely be dropping more info about that soon.
Dope.
But yeah.
My man Dwilly, I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great talking.
We'll definitely talk soon, bro.
All right, man. Toodles.
Peace.